Good evening and welcome to our series on Exodus. In the Old Testament is about you. I wanted to look at a couple of issues. I promised some historical background first of all. We have known for quite some time that the old dating for the Exodus was up to 400 years off. In other words, the Exodus took place some 400 years before the old dating said it would. Now this changes the complexion of many aspects of our understanding of the book of Exodus. But there are certain things that I think are important for us to know. First of all, the episodes in the life of Joseph and the patriarchs of Israel in their exile into Egypt took place in around the Semitic city of Avaris in the land of Goshen, that is one of the eastern delta regions of the Nile River. Very rich area, very well watered, good soil, and sort of almost a paradise of a place to be in those times. We know that when the Hebrews were made slaves, they were building the treasure cities of Pharaoh. Somehow there's a legend that the Jews were involved in building the pyramids, but pyramid building was over long before the time of the going down into Egypt of the tribe of Ibiru, or Hebrews. The pyramid building was quite ancient, and we set the dates of the Exodus back partly through the results of the excavations at the pharaonic or imperial city of Tel Armana, because of the official documents that have been found there. We now know, for example, that the edict to kill the boy children born to the Asiatics, that is the Hebrews, particularly focused on that area around Avaris, was issued by Kaneferi IV. Sobekotep was his actual name, but his throne name was Kaneferi. So Sobekotep Kaneferi IV issued this edict. Now, he was 13th dynasty, which means that this event would have taken place by 1630 BC at the latest. The dynasty ended at either between 1630 and 1650 BC. So some hundreds of years earlier than the old chronology. Probably Ramesses II would have come about 400 years later, although the Exodus was often given as being in the reign of Ramesses, the son of Seti. And Moses then would have been stepson or foster son, likely of Sobekotep Kaneferi IV, because it was during that reign that the war with Cush took place. And Moses apparently would have been one of the heroes of that battle. And there was a certain amount of envy toward Moses at that time, because he wasn't the heir to the throne, and yet he was enormously popular. At the same time, the Egyptians had become wary of the rising power and the growing numbers of the Asiatics living around Avaris in Goshen, and were worried about their military prowess, because they were known for military prowess. Remember, Abraham had conquered the kings who had taken the cities of the plains, Sodom and Gomorrah and the others, and rescued his nephew Lot from them. So they were not pushover in a military sense. In any case, the order to kill the firstborn, not the firstborn, but all the boys, they were to be drowned in the river or strangled or whatever, Now, when the city of Avaris was excavated, it's hundreds and hundreds of graves of boy children were found in that area. But we also know then that the edict did take place, and we know in whose reign it took place, and we know about the massive number of graves of boy children who were buried in the land of Goshen in that era. So that part of the story of Genesis Exodus has been substantiated for us by outside historical evidence. The other interesting thing is that the tomb of Joseph was found in Avaris. It was found empty. And the cult statue of Joseph, which was broken but repairable, the Egyptians would have placed that statue there, was found. It's there. The bones of Joseph, of course, missing, just as the book of Exodus tells us that they would be. So we have this substantiation for this entire historical setting. And I would like to ask you to remember these facts as we talk about the book of the Exodus, because, as I say, it changes our complexion in our understanding of what took place when and how. And we're going to find that we have this external substantiation of the story. We're also going to find out later that we have considerable external verification of the stories about the reigns of Saul and David. Saul and David were throne names. We'll even discover what their actual names were. The kings never kept their given name when they were enthroned. There was always a throne name, just as Sobekotep took the name Kanaferi IV when he was enthroned. And this will take place throughout that whole history of that era when there were throne names given. That will also explain to us why we find what appears to be one or two contradictions in the listing of the kings of Babylon when we get to that point. Because we're given perhaps a throne name when archaeological finds give us the actual name or the reverse. And this is part of why there's occasionally some confusion. But we'll find that the story of Exodus and the story of the reign of David and Saul are much more accurate and much more verified than had been previously thought by many. So I'm going to leave you at this, understanding that we do know now closer to the date for the Exodus, and we have substantiated the decree for the killing of the boy children of the Asiatics, that is the Hebrews, who were living in the Avaris area in the land of Goshen. And a certain amount of confirmation about Joseph having been buried there, and his remains having been taken away with the Asiatics when they departed from Egypt. So as we proceed now, we're going to see how Moses had acquitted himself well as a commander and a soldier in the southern wars, the battles in Upper Egypt. And there was a great deal of distress over Moses because he was not the heir to the throne, but was already a great deal more popular than the heir to the throne. And with the Hebrews having increased in numbers so greatly, there was perhaps fear that Moses would have staged a coup d'etat and taken over from Pharaoh's son. So we see a broader picture of what happened than just Moses killing the Egyptian who was mistreating the Hebrew. You see, in the context of the envy against Moses, in the context of the fear, discovering that Moses was a Hebrew would have added enormously to the angst over Moses' presence and the desire of at least the son of Pharaoh to be rid of him, to find an excuse to have him destroyed. His immense popularity, the fact that